of fall foliage. And we are pretty much at peak color right now in northern New Hampshire. A lot of the trees you're going to see from this point above on the mountain are actually coniferous or evergreen variety. Because as you ascend the mountain in elevation, it's like going north in latitude. The early season becomes shorter. The vegetation you see changes in time with that. It's still a bit of a mix. You have some deciduous like the mountain ash, those are the ones with bright and red berries, the ash hill, and there's birch mixed in. But predominantly we are white pine, black spruce, and balsam fir. And by the time we get to the last climate zone on the mountain, the alpine zone, there will be no trees at all. And that's great because the birds are beautiful blue being washed in by the trees. The reason why that is not because they were cut, because they cannot grow there. Growing season is too short for any tree line of any variety above a certain elevation on this mountain. And that really serves as a testament to the climate here. Because when you look at the Rockies, tree line occurs at close to twice the elevation it does here.
Really tough to get up.
What about I go?
Want to be on the outside?
Now, Railway may be a bit of a living museum. But that doesn't mean we haven't made certain upgrades over the years to help make life easier for the crew. One of those key upgrades is the addition of our hydraulic switches and our turnouts. Our switch tracks used to be, before the early 2000s, manual switches, 9 different points or moving parts that all had to be thrown one at a time by hand by the brakeman. Now the switches throw at a push of a button, and the ones on the mountain are actually off the grid and solar powered. You'll see a shack coming up here to the left, some solar panels on the roof. There's a battery bank inside there, and that battery bank powers a hydraulic HPU, which will allow for the throwing of the switch track, which is one single deck with 2 sets of rails and a rack. We're going to take the left-hand track and go get water at our tank there and wait for the diesel switch just off the base to pass us because they can go faster. And then we'll get in behind them and continue our journey to the summit.
That slag in my airways.
Close to 1,000 gallons of water for a summit trip. But the tender, for weight purposes, only holds about 700 gallons of water at a time. So we top off water here at the Wombeck tank. The water in that tank is all obtained from a nearby underground spring, just like in the old days, or gravity fed. Now, part of my job is to watch the tracks on the way up. And that's certainly crucial that the switches to ensure they are lined properly, as I'm the eyes for the engineer. So now that I see we're certainly lined and proper, I'm going to signal them forward. This is my hydraulic switch, one of several of these devices.
Started to look away right as I took the picture. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I think everybody else got the same idea.
We're going to pull right up alongside that Wombeck tank. Wombeck, by the way, in Abenaki means white or white-faced mountain. The White Mountains here actually get their name primarily from the rocks. The rocks consist of mica schist and quartzite. The mica schist are flecks of mica, the quartzite, flecks of quartz, and those will sparkle or appear white in the sunlight at the White Mountain. Elevation at tank here, 3,800 feet. I can tell you that means I've climbed up 1,100 feet since we began the journey. Temperatures and circulation around 26 to 2,700. just above where you boarded is about 2,700. Of course, on our way to 6,288 seats, so we got quite a bit to go. We'll go to a stop here. Typically, they'll get into action, filling up water, and then inspecting the locomotive while we wait for the diesel trains to pass us by to the right.
Yeah, I've got stuff all over. She's got a white shirt on, but I'm getting coffee over here.
I think you got that. Alright, stop.
I don't have any idea what I have.
All right, now to compensate for our steep grades, we have a lot of engineering at work. Look at the platforms here, what we call Wambeck Station. These are level platforms, just like the water tank is level, the switch houses, and so forth. This is how you have to build them on this sloped ground to actually make a flat surface, unlike our coach here. Now the locomotive boiler is mounted on an incline, also to compensate for that angle, so you ensure proper water coverage across the fire tube bundle inside. The engine crew monitors a water glass in the cab to ensure that the water level is maintained at proper heights depending on the pitch of the track and what the locomotive is doing. You inject water to the boiler accordingly, and then keep an eye on that glass. There's also a tricock system to open up to tell truly where the water sits in the boiler. There are two ways they can get the water in. They can inject it, or they can use the feed water pump. We have a preheater and a pump that's driven off a gear underneath the tender of the locomotive, and that runs a bit more efficiently if that thing's in use. The tank here was rebuilt just a couple seasons ago with the same principles of the old tank. It's still getting its water from just up mountain here on the right in the woods at a natural spring source. We put the hose into the spring, and there's enough gravity pressure to get that down and then up into the tank, fill that right up. As it overflows, there's an overflow pipe on the tank. Water just returns to the ground system and is recycled back into the spring network, so nothing is wasted. The water at the base tank, you saw that base water tank, that's all obtained from the Amanuset River with a collection box upstream. Tremendous pressure at quite a few hundred feet upstream and up in elevation. When we get a flooding rainstorm, we'll actually blow the pipes apart. Sometimes we gotta go walk the line and reconnect them through because the pressure builds. And speaking of pressure, that locomotive is maintaining quite a bit of boiler pressure for a small engine. They actually have a working pressure of anywhere from 150 to 170 psi, and they like to keep it right in that zone. It does have a pressure relief valve set at 175 psi, so you can't get more than that, or it will flow on through the relief. It's like your home hot water tank would essentially. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to be making my way to the other end, because what we're going to do, as soon as the diesels pass us by, we're going to reverse direction and queue ourselves up right at the switch to get ready to come through the switch, and then back up, and we're going to proceed upbound on the adjacent track behind the diesel set. So this head start gives us the chance to make our way to the tank, fill water, and be ready to go when they go by. So this locomotive is on the grades, the steep parts, about half as fast as the diesel engine. So when I make my way to that end in a few minutes, if anyone has any questions, you can let me know. But you will be traveling in the backwards position for about a few hundred feet until we get through the switch, and then we'll be all upbound from there. When you guys are returning with us later on, when you get off at the summit, I will flip the seats around so you'll face the correct direction during the actual descent part of the trip. This station here, by the way, this is used from November to April. We do run year-round here at the railway, but our winter months, it's pretty inhospitable to get to the summit, or leave anyone at the summit, I should say, because the state park, which runs the facilities up there, they close down. In fact, their last day of operations is October 15th. So we can't really bring people up there. There's no shelter to bring them into. We don't own the facilities there like we used to do if you go back enough in history. So we run our partial trips to Wambeck, which are diesel powered only, and it's a less expensive price point with a shorter duration trip that terminates here. These decks are designed to actually afford excellent views looking behind us west towards the Franconia Ridge and in Vermont. Folks can embark from a ski journey here. They can actually ride the train as a ski lift of sorts and then ski down right next to the tracks back to the base station. We have plenty of folks doing that. You can just ride as a sightseeing trip if you'd like. We do have a fire pit just up mountain of these decks, roasted marshmallows, hot dogs, and so forth. Each one of these huts on the deck has heaters, and you can get in there to be warm on the coldest of days. In fact, coldest of days last winter, we set a new record for coldest wind chill recorded. Minus 108 degrees on the summit of Mount Washington.
What is it right now? More than likely related to that.
I think that diesel's coming from behind us. No, no.
I'm gonna make my way to the other end, get us ready for backward travel. Just sit tight. I'm gonna shut this door while I'm away from this end, just for safety purposes, but when I come back up, once we're upbound again, I will pop it back open.
No, it's a driver's license and internal training certification.
1866.
Yeah, okay.
Capture. All right. Bring back here to get us moving in this direction. Alright, so we'll wait here for 2 more diesel trains, and we'll proceed through the switch and then back in the other
2 more diesels. Yep.
Now we're at our busiest, we can have 3 or 4 trains up, and then 3 or 4 down. Whatever's 3 is 4 the other way, and so forth. For total capacity per hour of up to 280 passengers and 2,100 passengers per day maximum. Pretty close to that, all this group. Very, very good. Thank you guys for bearing with us as we were in the just a bit behind getting to the summit, maybe 5 minutes or so. machine oil in particular, whether it's kill or machine oil things in-house. Keep that just alive. There's a third frame through the switch will be underway in the switch at the moment.
Coming.
Now we're headed down the mountain later on, so we have these wheels once again. It's like braking force. As the coach needs to brake all the way down the mountain to assist with the deceleration of the train. The engine does not have the ability to pull back the way the coach without them. These brakes can apply here to assist. There's one brake on each of the axles of the coach. There's a friction along the third set. Engine and coach are not connected, therefore you can stop independently of the wheel so you're on. Coach can be brought all the way down the mountain. Big speed this way is the breakthrough.
Oh, sure. Yeah. All right.
Grab the seats and make my way back up the front. Shove off. Back in the upbound direction here.
All right, just like that, we're back on track.
And we're back.
base, summit, and here about 1/3 of the way up. So all passings achieved here, scheduled timed out to do so. Now, as the first downbound train passes us over there on the main line, you'll get a good look at that biodiesel locomotive in action. And they use, just very similar to us, the braking system of cog gears. Their coaches have the same setup with the brakes that we have here, but their brakemen don't have to manipulate those brakes all the way down the mountain like we do. Those diesel locomotives have enough pull back to keep the weight of the coach under control without assisted braking. The brakes are just there as a backup on the coach.
That red locomotive was the Abenaki.
And here comes the second downbound train. The green locomotive making its way around the bend there. Now, right about the same time we pass that locomotive, there's going to be a view on the right-hand side, looking out across towards the southern Presidentials. Mount Monroe will be quite visible there. This one is the Lake of the Clouds Hut, which is an overnight hiker shelter run by the Appalachian Mountain Club as part of a network of high huts and shelters within the White Mountains for hikers who spend the night. You can only get there by hiking. Now, if you want to see the hike, you're going to want to look to the right on the ridge line. It's got the building with a triangular roof peak. It'll look like a cabin perch high up on the ridge. So you'll kind of have to pick if you want to look at the train or you want to check the view at the right. It'll happen right about the same time. There's the hut. It's just away the center of Mount Monroe. It's no longer open for this season because of seasonal operation closing down in the fall. Reopening next summer. Some of the huts are year-round, however, some of those AMC destinations.
On the ridge.
And the third train is passing us by, so now what happens here is the two tracks go back together as one. If you can see the white train off in the distance, that's where it rejoins as one single main line. So we do have that bit of a traffic jam where we gotta wait for all the downbounds to get through, and now the upbounds can proceed. So you'll start to see the diesels ahead of us moving, and then we'll run right up behind them.
I can't tell what that black locomotive was.
Now, you get a pretty good idea of how our track is constructed by taking a look at the main line to our left. It is one big long wooden trestle all the way from base to summit, meaning the track is elevated from the ground at all times. Very different than a mainline railroad where the track would sit directly on the ground, roadbed of ballast. This track design enables us to achieve two things. Number one is we can kind of offer the inclines and angles on the rugged land of the mountain. It also allows water to flow beneath the track structure. In heavy rains or snow melt, it can kind of flow beneath this type of track, leaving the supports relatively undisturbed, whereas a ballasted roadbed would be quite subject to washouts. Noticed that the trees are shrinking. Their overall height is a bit shorter now than certainly when they left the base. That's not because they're younger necessarily. For the most part, they're fully grown and mature at this height, and that will continue to shrink as we climb. The stunted growth are related to the length of the growing season that is available to them. The stunted growth trees are called scrub pine, or sometimes by a German term, which is Krummholz. Krummholz means crooked wood. A lot of them have a very gnarly, rugged appearance as they grow short to the ground because of the severe weather conditions they have to grow within. The next climate zone we're entering here is called the subalpine zone, which is marked by these stunted growth trees. Up here at these higher elevations, the decomposition rate is quite a bit slower, and the soil acidity is higher, and that all favors the evergreen variety. And of course, that prominent mountain ash still mixed in. There's red berries there. Just as before, I'll assess the switch, make sure they're all set to go up back to the single track. It looks good there. Signal the engineer forward. halfway point where we marked off was an appropriately titled building known as the Halfway House. This was a very important structure in the early days of the railway, as it stood as a wood storage shed for those early wood-fired steam engines. Dry wood could be obtained there, and blankets were handed out to the early passengers. For the first several years of operations here, the passenger cars were completely open, exposing everyone to the elements. Now, even during the summer months, you can get certain days where the temperature can drop below freezing at the top of the mountain. So those blankets, I'm sure, were very much appreciated. Now, by contrast, today we have July-like temperatures in October, which I'm not complaining. But as I said to a few passengers during the boarding process, it will return to seasonable very shortly here, as the forecast for Sunday, as of now anyway, calls for a mix of rain and snow at the summit with temperatures in the low 30s. And that is normal. That's what we expect this time of year at the top of the mountain. We just haven't had it yet. House is just ahead on the right. It's another opportunity to give you a look at that very unique process of constructing these buildings on the slope mountainside to make them level. It also has a big picture window on the side facing the tracks. And if you look at our reflection in that window as we go by, you'll get an idea of our very intense angle of ascent compared to the level building. It's a great picture opportunity because just below the window, there is a sign stating that the building is in fact level. The elevation now we have is about 4,500 feet.
What? Oh, God, yeah.
Great look ahead of us up at Spring-Logan Diesels. Just ahead of the blue engine and just below the orange engine is our steepest section of track, known as Jacob's Ladder Trestle. A little more about that when we reach it in a few minutes. But have a look at this halfway house here on the right. So I do promise, if you walked in there, or better yet, put something round on the floor, it would not roll to one end like it certainly would do here on the coach.
There's the blue and there's the orange.
Just ahead, before we reach Jacob's Ladder Trestle, there's going to be a special rock feature on the right that we call the Profile Rock. Now, this rock bears a striking resemblance to New Hampshire's state symbol, the Old Man Mountain. Now, for those familiar, the Old Man Mountain was a rock feature quite large that sat not only above Franconia Knobs on Cannon Mountain, a half hour from here. When you look at it from the correct angle below, it looks like the side or profile view of an old man's face, naturally occurring in that shape.
Look at that view.
Now, sadly, back in 2003, the feature collapsed after years of erosion and weathering, and a rock slide wiped it out. The place to see the Old Man on the Mountain now is in videos, pictures, postcards, highway signs, and our state license plate. But here at the COG, you can get a look at what we call the miniature, or mini Old Man on the Mountain, our profile rock, just against that white sign on the forward right. That rock will look very much the same, a lot smaller, but the same shape to it, and it is also a natural phenomenon. Now you're going to wait till we get just a bit closer before that face shape becomes apparent. So when you get too close to it, the image kind of goes away. And I'll let you know exactly when it's real prominent. It will appear to have a forehead, a nose, and a chin with a beard at the bottom.
Alright, kiddo.
Alright, so your folks in the front of the train, you can start to notice it now.
See ya. How's everything?
And if you remember the old man of the mountain, the one I spoke about in Charles Park, you'll see where it looks very similar.
I'm level, you're not. It's like one of those shows where you're walking in.
That's not a tailwind. Now keep in mind, all of that coal, that almost 1 ton of coal we need for each trip, is hand shoveled into that firebox. So Eli, our fireman, is getting a good workout shoveling coal all the way up the mountain. He gets a nice rest on the way down, however, as his primary responsibility is to watch the track, much like mine is on the way up.
Maybe it doesn't just of how much smoke there is.
Now just ahead we have that Jacob's Ladder trestle. This is not only our steepest grade, but it just so happens to be the steepest and windiest rail trestle anywhere in the world. Now there's only one cog railway with a steeper grade than us worldwide. That is the Mount Pilatus Railway, the Swiss Alps, 32% grade. Right here we have 37.5%. The kicker is their 42% is not on a trestle like this. And of course we predate them in age. Now Jacob's Ladder will pass us right between two ravine features here. We'll have Amanusic Ravine off to the right, and this to our left here is called Bird's Ravine, named after a gentleman by the name of Henry Bird. I'll speak a little bit more on later. Elevation here, 4,725 feet as we cross the trestle. If you want to try the old standing up trick again, this will be our steepest part to do that at.
I'm level. You are? You are level.
Really excellent view on the right now.
Here, let me take a picture of you standing level.
Once again. This right here is one of the best views for the folks on the right-hand side of the train.
Oh, hey, look. Oh, wow. Hey, look. I'll give you my phone.
Okay. You want me to take a picture? A video?
Keep it recording.
Now, Jacob's Ladder here is quite an extreme piece of engineering, especially when you consider that the original trestle here was built in the 1860s without the aid of power tools, of course, here on this rugged mountain face. One of the biggest challenges to the early tractor was the weather. And of course, for the months of late October until mid to late May, they weren't able to get much done. Winter is a pretty big obstacle to work in those days.